At Sacsayhuamán in Peru, there are stone blocks fitted so precisely that a razor blade will not pass between them. On those same blocks, rough, irregular lumps protrude from the surface. The same lumps appear at the Menkaure Pyramid in Egypt, at Ollantaytambo, at the Osireion in Abydos, at Yangshan Quarry in China. 14 sites across 4 continents, and no conventional explanation accounts for why they are there. These lumps are called knobs. Some of them are easy to explain. The Propylaea Gateway in Athens has over 400. Each one is centered on its block, has a flat bottom, and projects far enough to hold a rope. When a block is long, 2 knobs sit symmetrically to prevent rotation during lifting. Egyptian sarcophagus lids carry the same feature. So do Indian temples. Centered placement, flat bottoms, uniform shape, adequate projection. These are lifting bosses, and they are well understood. But if lifting bosses were the whole story, there is an immediate problem. Ancient builders had other lifting methods. Lewis bolts were inserted into prepared holes above a block's center of mass. Lifting tongs gripped from 2 pre-drilled holes on opposite sides. The aqueduct of Segovia was built entirely with tongs, not bosses. If knobs were just rope anchors, why use them at all when cleaner methods existed? And why leave them on the finished wall? Greek builders at the Parthenon routinely chiseled their lifting bosses off after placement. The walls were meant to be smooth. A second type of knob is structural. At Coricancha in Cusco, oversized rectangular knobs interlock with receiving slots on adjacent blocks. Mortise and tenon joints, the same connection woodworkers have used for millennia. The Osireion has them. So does the Beidongshan tomb in China. Functional, conventional, explained. But the third type breaks the pattern entirely. At Sacsayhuamán, Ollantaytambo, Cusco, the Menkaure Pyramid, and the Osireion, there are knobs that are none of these things. Irregular shapes, random sizes, random placements, not centered, not symmetrical, too shallow for any rope to grip. They serve no visible structural or transportation purpose, and yet they appear on some of the most precisely engineered walls on Earth. Walls where joints are airtight, surfaces with no visible tool marks, blocks weighing tens of tons fitted together like interlocking puzzle pieces. Consider what it would take to carve a knob into granite. You do not add stone, you remove everything around it. That means hours of additional labor per block, shaping the surrounding surface down to leave an irregular lump protruding. On walls where every other detail suggests extraordinary precision, this makes no sense. Unless the lumps were never carved at all. In 1979, French materials scientist Joseph Davidovits proposed that certain ancient stone structures were not quarried, but cast. His geopolymer theory argued that blocks were formed from ite aggregate mixed with a chemical binder, poured into molds, and left to harden. The idea met resistance from Egyptologists, but the physical evidence supporting it has continued to accumulate for over 4 decades. Look at the surfaces between the knobs at Ollantaytambo. There are shallow, scraping strokes across the monoliths, some horizontal, some vertical, one curved. They are distinct from any decorative pattern. These marks are identical to what happens when a construction worker drags a trowel across wet concrete. Troweling is a standard finishing technique. It leaves exactly these kinds of shallow, directional strokes. There is no reason a stonemason would carve trowel marks into finished stonework. At Coricancha, the evidence goes further. Small indentations with curved, raised edges appear on certain blocks. They do not resemble quarry marks. They resemble what happens when a tool is pressed into soft, malleable material and pulled away. These are not just protrusions, these are also depressions, as though someone pushed into the surface while it was still pliable. Every one of these details has an explanation if the blocks were cast from a material that was once soft and pliable. The bulging is slump from water content. The screeding marks are finishing strokes on uncured material. The joints are airtight because semi-soft blocks were pressed together before they hardened, like squeezing modeling clay together. The zigzag conjunction lines that make these walls look like jigsaw puzzles would form naturally when semi-rigid blocks were set against each other before fully curing. And the irregular knobs sit predominantly at the lower portions of blocks, exactly where excess material would accumulate due to gravity during casting. At the Menkaure Pyramid, the evidence becomes harder to dismiss. Some blocks are flat on one side and bulging on the other. They appear frozen in the middle of screeding, a process where a straight edge is dragged across wet material to flatten and level it. Some blocks were screeded, others were not. The work stopped before it was finished. The Osireion shows the same signature. Upper blocks are flat and straight. Lower blocks are bulging and thicker. Visible screeding marks run from top to bottom, with the stroke patterns still visible on the surface. In 2006, Professor Michel Barsoum of Drexel University examined pyramid stones under electron microscopy and found silicon dioxide nanospheres and a calcium silicate hydrate phase. These are chemical signatures consistent with a synthetic binding process. His peer-reviewed findings, published in the Journal of the American Ceramic Society, showed microstructural evidence that did not match natural limestone from the Mokattam quarries. Crucially, these signatures appeared in the outer casing stones, the blocks that would have been cast in molds against finished faces, not in the rougher core blocks behind them. The rebuttal came quickly. Dupayan Jana, a petrographic consultant, published a response in the same journal the following year. He examined samples from the Great Pyramid of Khufu and found no amorphous silica consistent with geopolymer. His conclusion was that the stones were natural limestone, quarried and placed conventionally. But Jana examined Khufu's pyramid, not Menkaure, where blocks appear frozen mid-screed, not Peru, where thousands of stones bulge identically, not the Osireion, where screeding marks run the full height of the wall. The rebuttal addressed one site and declared the question closed across all 14. Every one of these details has an explanation if the blocks were cast from a material that was once soft and pliable. The bulging is slump from water content. The screeding marks are finishing strokes on uncured material. The joints are airtight because semi-soft blocks were pressed together before they hardened, like squeezing modeling clay together. The zigzag conjunction lines that make these walls look like jigsaw puzzles would form naturally when semi-rigid blocks were set against each other before fully curing. And the irregular knobs sit predominantly at the lower portions of blocks, exactly where excess material would accumulate due to gravity during casting. The joints between bulging blocks are subtly sunken, as though worked with an edging tool while the material was still malleable. This is standard practice in modern concrete finishing. It is completely unnecessary for quarried stone. The proposal is not that ancient builders softened existing rock with acid or some unknown formula. No one has demonstrated that softening and rehardening natural stone is feasible at construction scale. The proposal, supported by Davidovits and Barsoum independently, is that these structures were cast in place using an advanced geopolymer, poured into forms and finished while still in a plastic state. This would also explain the engineering. Dry stacked construction without mortar is self-draining, flexible, and absorbs seismic movement rather than cracking. In earthquake-prone Peru, these walls have survived for millennia, while mortared structures around them have collapsed. This is not primitive construction. It is what you would design if you understood materials science at a level we are only now beginning to reach. 14 sites, 4 continents, the same irregular knobs, the same bulging surfaces, the same screeding marks, the same airtight joints with no mortar. Either separate civilizations on opposite sides of the planet independently developed identical construction quirks by coincidence, or a single construction method left a single signature everywhere it was used. The knobs are not a mystery. They are a fingerprint. Stone does not bulge. Concrete does. If you want to support deeper research and found this journey as fascinating as we did, subscribe to Ancient Epochs for more.